The last thing I felt in my former life was my mother's hand between my shoulder blades. It was not a shove at first. It was a tremble, a pleading pressure, the warmth of the palm that had once held mine when I crossed streets, the same palm that had wiped fever sweat from my forehead when I was small enough to believe love was a room with no locks. Then her fingers curled. Her nails bit through my coat. Her breath hit my ear in frantic little bursts, sour with fear, sweet with the lie she had been chewing all night. "Lena," she whispered, "your brother is weaker than you." Behind her, Caleb sobbed, with his face hidden in the collar of my father's coat. He was not crying because he was afraid for me. He was crying because the safe room door was closing, because the last oxygen filter inside the apartment could not keep all of us alive, because the freezing storm had turned the balcony rail into a rib of white iron, and the corridor outside had become a slaughterhouse of wind. My father would not look at me. That was the part that broke something deep in my chest. Not the cold already licking through the cracked balcony door, not the gray bodies of neighbors frozen against the stairwell windows, not the shriek of the emergency sirens fading into a city that no longer had rescue teams, only locked doors and people praying that someone else would die first. It was my father lowering his eyes. My mother pushed. My boots scraped across the tile. I grabbed for the door frame and my nails tore backward with a wet sting. Pain flashed white behind my eyes. I screamed her name. Not Mom, her name, Margaret. It came out raw and ugly, ripped from the little girl inside me who finally understood that a mother could step over her child as cleanly as stepping over spilled water. She did not flinch. Caleb lifted his head just enough for me to see his eyes, dry, bright, watching. The balcony swallowed me. Cold hit like a beast with iron teeth. It did not merely touch my skin, it entered me, invaded my ears, my nostrils, the corners of my eyes. My lungs seized around the first breath and the air sliced downward like broken glass. I slammed against the railing, my hip struck metal. The sound was dull, final, almost ridiculous in the screaming wind. Inside, my mother pulled the glass door shut. For a heartbeat, I saw them through the frost. My family stood in the golden apartment light like actors at the end of a play. My father's mouth moved. Perhaps he said he was sorry. Perhaps he told himself I would forgive them in heaven. Caleb clutched the access badge I had earned, the badge to the inner heated room, the badge I had spent months fighting for while he stayed home, pale and delicate, cultivating weakness like a flower everyone watered. My breath fogged the glass. I beat my fists against it. The pain in my torn nails became distant, swallowed by the larger agony of blood slowing in my veins. My mother pressed both hands to her mouth. Her eyes brimmed beautifully. She had always been beautiful when she cried. People believed beautiful crying. The lock clicked. That small sound cut through the storm more cruelly than any scream. I slid down the door. The balcony floor burned through my pants. Burned, though it was cold. That was the trick of the white storm. It made freezing feel like fire, made every nerve bloom and burst. My teeth struck together so hard I tasted blood. My fingers stiffened into claws against the glass. I watched Caleb step closer to the door. He looked down at me, and in that moment his sobbing mask loosened, his lips curved, not much, just enough. The world narrowed to that smile. All the years unfolded inside me with hideous clarity, Caleb breaking vases and pointing at me with wet eyes. Caleb spending my tuition money on treatments for illnesses doctors never found. Caleb pressing his forehead to Mom's shoulder, murmuring that I hated him, that I always looked at him like he was a burden. Caleb stealing my research, my food, my coat, my last clean water bottle during the collapse, and every time, my mother turning to me with that exhausted righteousness. "You are the older sister, you are stronger, you should understand." The cold climbed into my heart. I no longer had the strength to pound the door. I could only stare. My father closed the curtains. Darkness fell in a soft domestic sweep. The apartment light disappeared. The storm took the rest. I died with my cheek against the glass, staring at my own reflection, lips blue, lashes jeweled with frost, eyes open so wide they seemed less like eyes than wounds. My last thought was not a prayer, it was not forgiveness, it was a promise so black it seemed to burn warmer than my blood. If I ever opened my eyes again, I would teach them what it meant to be left outside. Then the wind roared through my skull. I opened my eyes, air slammed into my lungs, warm air, damp air. Air that smelled of lavender detergent, fried eggs, and the cheap lemon cleaner my mother used when guests were expected. I sat up so violently that the blanket twisted around my waist like a snare. Sweat ran down my temples, my hair clung to my neck, my heart hammered hard enough to bruise. No frost, no balcony, no dead city groaning beneath the white sky. Sunlight lay across my old bedroom floor. For several seconds, I could not move. I stared at the peeling glow stars on the ceiling, the crooked bookshelf, the cracked vanity mirror with a ribbon tied around the frame. My hands shook as I lifted them. My nails were whole, pink, smooth. Not torn down to bleeding half moons. I pressed them into my palms until pain answered clean and alive. A laugh crawled up my throat. It came out broken. On the desk, my phone buzzed. the screen lit with the date, the day before the National Shelter Lottery results were finalized. The days I had signed over my priority family allocation to Caleb, because my mother had cried until her voice dissolved. The day I had handed him the golden chance that should have saved me. The day the first invincible line had been drawn between those who would survive the coming climate collapse and those who would beg at sealed doors. I was back, not months before, not years. Just here, balanced on the edge of the knife, standing at the exact hour when my family would ask me to bleed politely and call it love. Outside my door, my mother's voice floated down the hallway. "Lena, sweetheart, are you awake? Sweetheart." My stomach turned. I swung my legs over the side of the bed. The floor was warm beneath my bare feet. That warmth nearly made me weep, not from softness, but from rage. In my memory, my feet were blackened by frost. In this life, they were alive, waiting to carry me wherever revenge required. I walked to the mirror. A young woman stared back at me. Pale, damp, eyes too calm for the shaking body beneath them. My face was still the face they thought they owned. Obedient daughter, useful sister, quiet worker, the one who gave up the last dumpling, the last coat, the last chance. But something beneath the skin had changed. The old Lena had died on the balcony. This one had crawled back, wearing her name like a blade hidden in silk. My mother knocked once and opened the door without waiting. She came in with a bowl of soup cupped between both hands, as if she were carrying tenderness. Her hair was carefully pinned, her eyes were already red at the edges, prepared. Of course, the performance had started before breakfast. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked. "You look terrible." I looked at the soup. Chicken ginger scallion. My favorite. She only cooked it when she needed something. "I had a nightmare," I said. Her face softened with practiced concern. "Poor child. Come eat. Your brother had a rough night too. He barely slept." There was laid gently on the bed between us, your brother, the center of every room. The sacred wound no one was allowed to touch. I smiled. My mother froze, only for a breath, but I saw it. She had expected exhaustion, worry, guilt. My smile was small, quiet, almost tender. It must have unsettled her because it did not belong to the daughter she had trained. "I'll come some," I said. In the dining room, Caleb sat wrapped in a gray blanket though the morning was warm. His hair fell across his forehead in soft, pitiable strands. He held a tissue in one hand and my printed lottery notification in the other. My father sat beside him, stiff and solemn. The family tribunals was assembled. Caleb lifted his eyes when I entered. They were wet, luminous, framed by dark circles he had probably pressed beneath them with cold spoons. His voice trembled. "Sis, I'm sorry. I didn't want Mom and Dad to ask you. Really, I told them not to." My mother made a choked sound. "Caleb, don't say that. You know your body can't handle hardship. The doctor said stress could trigger another episode." The doctor had said no such thing. In my last life, I learned that Caleb had been paying a clinic assistant for vague reports and dramatic wording. Fragile constitution. Possible complications. Avoid emotional distress. A whole palace built from paper and everyone bowing inside it. My father cleared his throat. "Lena, you won the priority family shelter unit because of your civil infrastructure work. We are proud of you, truly, but the allocation can be transferred within immediate family before tonight. Caleb is young, his health is unstable. You have always been practical. Practical. Such a clean word for sacrifice demanded at a dinner table. I sat down across from them. The chair legs whispered against the floor. The soup steamed near my hand, fragrant and golden. I watched the vapor curl and vanish. My mother reached across the table and touched my wrist. Her fingers were warm. I remembered those fingers locking me out. "Your brother will die without that unit," she whispered. "You won't. You're capable. You know how to work, how to adapt. When the emergency housing expansion opens, we'll get you in. We're a family. We share." Caleb bowed his head as if ashamed, but his grip tightened around the notification. I tilted my head. "Share." "Yes," my mother said quickly, sensing surrender in the word. "Exactly. You help him now. Later, when he is stable, he will help you. Blood should not calculate. Blood should not calculate." In my former life, blood had calculated the oxygen level in a sealed room and subtracted me. My father's brows drew together. "Do not make this harder than it needs to be." There it was, the iron beneath the cloth. I looked at each of them, my mother with her shining eyes, my father with his verdict already written, Caleb with his trembling mouth and hungry fingers. Around them the apartment seemed unchanged. Family photos on the wall, blue curtains, the balcony beyond the living room glass, filled with potted basil and my mother's prayer flags. Sunlight made everything innocent. I almost laughed. They thought this was the moment they stole my future. They did not know I was looking at a coffin wrapped in gold. The priority shelter unit everyone coveted was not the miracle the public believed it to be. In the first wave, those glass-fronted sky shelters became symbols of survival. Heated walls, hydroponic racks, medical pods, private air filtration. The wealthy bribed officials for them, influencers recorded tours inside them, families killed over transfer forms. But I had worked on the infrastructure review team. I knew what had been buried after the pilot inspection. The western tower line, including the panoramic balcony's extension attached to my allocation, had a pressure defect in the exterior's lock system. During the white storm, the smart doors would misread thermal contraction as breach risk. Once emergency mode activated, the balcony access could seal from the inside and outside under municipal override. Anyone trapped on that balcony after the system engaged would not be rescued. In my last life, I had never used that knowledge. I had not wanted to believe disaster would arrive so quickly. I had thought warning them would matter. I had thought family would matter. This time, I would wrap the death sentence in ribbon and place it in Caleb's hands. I lowered my eyes. My voice came out soft. You're right. The silence was almost funny. My mother blinked. Caleb looked up too fast. My father's stern expression loosened, caught unprepared by easy victory. I reached for the notification and slid it from Caleb's hand. His fingers resisted for a heartbeat. Fear flashed through his eyes, sharp and naked. Then I took the pen from the table and signed the transfer authorization. My name flowed across the page in blue ink. Lena Hart. A small funeral. My mother inhaled as if saved. Oh, sweetheart. Caleb's lips parted, his eyes flooded with theatrical gratitude. Sis, I swear I'll never forget this. I'll take care of you when everything settles. I placed the pen down carefully. I know you will. He did not hear the grave beneath the words. None of them did. My father actually smiled. That rare approving curve I had spent childhood chasing like a starving child, chasing the smell of bread. Good girl, he said. The word struck something old inside me. It did not hurt anymore. It simply rang hollow. My mother stood and came around the table to embrace me. I let her arms close around my shoulders. Her perfume pressed into my nose, powdery and floral. Beneath it, I imagined the smell of frozen metal, the sour panic of her breath as she shoved me out. Her cheek touched my hair. My sensible daughter, she murmured. You have always been kinder than you know. Over her shoulder, Caleb grinned. He did not bother to hide it this time, because my face was tucked against our mother's blouse. His smile widened with greedy relief, his entire sickly posture straightening, as though the blanket had been a royal cloak. He lifted the signed paper and held it toward the light. Ownership made him beautiful in his own mind. I stared at him without blinking. His smile faltered, only for a moment. Then he raised his brows, smugness returning. He believed he had won. He believed my quietness was defeat. Let him. A hook sinks deepest when the fish willingly. By noon, the transfer was processed. Caleb posted a tasteful message online about resilience, gratitude, and uncertain times. My mother commented with a string of hearts and prayers. My father shared it to his company group chat, mentioning how proud he was that his children supported one another. The family called relatives. Aunt Vivian said I had a generous soul. Uncle Robert said girls were naturally better at enduring discomfort. My grandmother cried and told me heaven would reward obedient daughters. Every blessing landed like ash. I answered each call politely. Yes, Caleb needs it more. Yes, I'm fine. Yes, family first. Each lie slipped from my mouth smooth as oil. When the calls ended, I went to my room and locked the door. My hands stopped shaking. The first thing I did was open the hidden archive I had once built for work. Inspection reports, maintenance schedules, emergency override diagrams, names of subcontractors who had cut corners and officials who had approved them. In my former, those files they vaulted as useless after the network collapsed. Now they glowed on my screen like bones under X-ray light. I searched my allocation code. Western Tower, upper residential ring, unit with panoramic balcony, exterior smart seal linked to municipal storm protocol, emergency override priority below central command. Manual release dependent on internal thermal sensor stability. I knew the phrase that mattered. Lock persistence indefinite under environmental hazard state. Forever if the hazard never cleared, and the white storm, when it came, would not clear. I leaned back. My room seemed suddenly too bright, too ordinary for the verdict sitting on my screen. Outside, my mother laughed at something Caleb said. The sound rose through the apartment, warm and careless. I closed the file. Then I began to prepare, not loudly, not dramatically. Revenge did not need witnesses at the start. It needed receipts, keys, sealed containers, and the patience to move before panic made prices monstrous. I sold the jewelry my grandmother had given me. The gold bangles my mother always said were sentimental but borrowed whenever she needed to impress friends. I emptied the savings account my father thought he monitored and moved the money through small transfers into a disaster fund under a work alias. I canceled the family-linked insurance policy that would have drained my salary for Caleb's so-called treatments. I accepted a private consulting payout from a warehouse engineer who wanted quiet guidance on cold-proofing storage unit seats. By evening, I owned 3 things that mattered more than the shining sky shelter Caleb had stolen: a reinforced basement lease beneath an abandoned textile market, a bulk order of compact water purifiers, and access to a forgotten municipal maintenance tunnel that ran below the Western District. The basement smelled of dust, rust, and old rain when I first unlocked it. The overhead lights flickered awake one by one, revealing concrete walls, drainage channels, and a steel service door thick enough to make me exhale for the first time since waking. No glass, no balcony, no pretty view. Nothing for fools to admire. Perfect. I walked through the space slowly, touching every surface. Here shelves for food, there batteries. Against the far wall, medical supplies. Near the drain, water storage. In the office nook, a bed, a radio, maps, printed manuals, weapons that were legal now and priceless later. I measured gaps, checked vents, photographed pipes, noted weak hinges. My mind moved with a cold, clean rhythm. In my last life I had begged for warmth. This time, I would build it. Over the next days I became two women. At home I was soft, quiet Lena, the generous sister. I listened while Caleb described the shelter's imported floor heating and panoramic emergency balcony. He said balcony with reverence, as if it were a throne suspended over the dying city. My mother fussed over which quilts he should bring. My father lectured me about not resenting success within the family. I nodded. I washed dishes. I packed Caleb's favorite snacks into neat boxes. In the city I was someone else. I bought canned meat by the crate from a restaurant supplier whose owner laughed at my seriousness till cash changed his mood. I collected antibiotics, antiseptic, thermal blankets, seed packets, battery banks, solar film, hand tools, respirator masks, rope, salt, dried beans, water tanks, an old mechanical lock untouched by smart grid failure. I memorized patrol routes around the western shelters. I bribed a retired technician with imported cigarettes and half a bottle of whiskey to teach me which access panels could be opened without triggering alerts. At night I trained my body until sweat soaked my shirt and my muscles trembled. Push-ups, stairs, loaded carries. Knife drills from videos saved offline, breath control until panic became something I could observe from a distance like weather behind glass. Sometimes, just before dawn, the memory returned, the shove, the lock. The curtain closing. I would wake gripping my own throat, silent, teeth clenched around a scream. Then I would rise, wash my face in cold water, and add another task to the list. My mother noticed nothing, or perhaps she noticed only what served her. "You look thinner," she said one morning, not with concern but accusation. "Do not make Caleb feel guilty by looking miserable." Caleb was sitting nearby, scrolling through shelter decoration forums. I smiled into my coffee. "I would never," he snorted. "Good. Because honestly, sis, you're better suited for rough conditions. You always had that stubborn face." My mother laughed lightly. She was born frowning. My father lowered his newspaper. "Resilience is useful. Beauty fades. Talent is luck. But endurance is character." They spoke of me as if I were a tool hanging on the wall. The old Lena might have swallowed the humiliation and searched for love between the words. This Lena listened and stored every syllable. I imagined repeating them later, slowly, when their lips were cracked from pleading. The first public warning came as rain, not ordinary rain. It fell warm and metallic, leaving silver stains on windowsills. The news anchors smiled too hard and called it an atmospheric anomaly. Experts argued beneath cheerful banners. People bought umbrellas. Children splashed in puddles that smelled faintly of battery acid. I stood at the living room window and watched drops slide down the glass like melted coins. My mother came up beside me. "Strange weather." "Very," I said. Behind us, Caleb was arguing with a delivery company about moving his belongings early into the shelter. He had become unbearable with victory. He called the unit his Sky Kingdom. He ordered heated slippers, designer emergency meals, a reclining chair, and a velvet throw he said would look amazing against the balcony view. Each package arrived with his name printed boldly across the label, and each one made my mother beam. The balcony at our apartment remained bright with basil pots and prayer flags. My mother opened the glass door to water them, and a gust of damp wind entered the room. For a second my lungs seized, my fingers curled around the windowsill. Caleb noticed, his eyes narrowed, then he smiled. "What's wrong, sis? Afraid of balconies now?" The room went very quiet. My mother turned, "Caleb," but she did not sound angry, only mildly embarrassed, as if he had told a rude joke at dinner. I looked at him, his smile sharpened. There was the boy from behind the glass, the one who had watched me die before I understood he had always wanted my place, my breath, my proof of existence. Maybe he did not remember the last life. Maybe cruelty did not need memory. Maybe it was simply his natural language. I walked to the balcony door. My mother stiffened. Caleb's smile twitched. I stepped outside. The air smelled of metal, rain, and wet leaves. The railing was warm beneath my hand. Below, traffic crawled through shining streets. Above, clouds gathered in thick pale bands, too low, too smooth, like a lid lowering over the world. I turned back to them. "Not afraid," I said. Caleb looked away first. That night, I made my final transfer, all remaining family photos from my devices into a sealed folder named Ash. Then I deleted their emergency contact privileges from my records. My hands did not tremble once. The next morning, my mother asked me to help Caleb move into the shelter. Just a few boxes, she said, though the hallway was crowded with luggage. You know your brother can't carry heavy things. Caleb stood behind her in a cream sweater, cheeks flushed with excitement. He looked healthier than I had seen him in years. Come on, sis, he said. You should see what you gave me, what I gave him. Yes, carried boxes to the transport van while my father supervised with folded arms. My mother fussed over Caleb's scarf, though the air had turned strangely warm. Neighbors watched with envy as the official shelter vehicle blinked at the curb. At the western tower, the lobby gleamed like a promise built by liars. Marble floors, filtered air, calm music. Guards with clean uniforms. Families moved through registration, clutching documents and children, their faces tight with the terror of people trying to appear chosen rather than desperate. Caleb's unit was high above the city. The elevator rose silently. My mother dabbed her eyes. My father's chest swelled. Caleb watched the floor numbers glow, his reflection layered over mine in the polished metal doors. When the unit opened, he gasped. It was beautiful, cruelly beautiful. White walls, heated floors, sealed pantry, hydroponic garden slots, mythical alcove, and beyond the living area the panoramic balcony enclosed in smart glass, curving outward like a jewel bubble over the city. From there the skyline spread beneath a bruised sky. Clouds churned at the horizon in pale coils. My mother clasped her hands. It's perfect. Caleb ran to the balcony door. Look at this view. I stood in the center of the room and listened. The ventilation hummed evenly. The door seals whispered. Somewheres inside the wall, the smart lock clicked through its diagnostic cycle with a soft, insect sound. Hello, coffin? Caleb pressed his palm to the balcony cincture. The glass door slid open. Warm wind rushed in. He stepped onto the balcony and threw his arms wide. This is mine, he said. My mother laughed through tears. My father placed a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, he said. I looked at his hand until he removed it. For the rest of the afternoon, I helped arrange Caleb's comforts exactly where he wanted them. The velvet throw on the reclining chair, the imported meals near the pantry, his favorite mug beside the induction plate. My mother placed framed family photos on the shelf, including one of me at graduation smiling like someone still waiting to be loved. Caleb pointed at it. Maybe remove that one. It makes the place feel gloomy. My mother hesitated, then she turned the frame face down. I laughed softly. All three of them looked at me. Sorry, I said. I just remembered something. Caleb rolled his eyes. You're being weird again. Outside, the sky dimmed though it was not yet evening. A tower announcement chimed overhead. Weather advisory upgraded. Residents are encouraged to complete supply checks. Balcony access remains available until emergency protocol activation. My mother looked worried. Already? My father frowned at his phone. The advisory jumped. Caleb waved a hand. That's why I'm here and not in our old apartment. Relax. I walked to the balcony threshold. The city below had changed color. Streets shone black. The strange rain had stopped, leaving a breathless pause behind it. Far away, a wall of white cloud moved between buildings, not drifting, but advancing. My pulse slowed. It was early. In my last life, the white storm arrived after midnight. This time it was coming before sunset. Maybe the world remembered too. Maybe it was impatient. My mother began making calls. My father checked the pantry inventory. Caleb stepped onto the balcony again, filming the sky. Followers are going to lose their minds, he said. This view is insane. I watched the smart door track above him. A tiny amber light blinked once. Diagnostic warning. Caleb did not see it. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A message from the retired technician flashed across the screen. Storm protocol rolling early. Western line sensor stable. Stay away from exterior glass. I deleted the message. My mother turned to me. Lena, you should head back before transportation shuts down. We'll call once everything calms. We, not you can stay, not we have room. Not thank you for giving your place to us. Just go back into the city that was beginning to hold its breath before disaster. Caleb lowered his phone and leaned against the balcony rail. Yeah, sis, don't worry. I'll send pictures. The old death stirred inside me, raising its frostbitten head. I walked toward the balcony. My mother frowned. Lena? The wind lifted my hair. Caleb looked annoyed as I stopped at the threshold between warm room and open glass curve. For an instant the scene folded over itself. Me outside, them inside, my palms on the door, my mother crying beautifully as she chews sif. This time I stood inside. Caleb stood beyond the line. The amber light blinked again. A low mechanical hum passed through the wall. I smiled at my brother and finally let him see a little of what had come back with me from the cold. His expression changed. What? He asked. The tower siren began to wail. The siren did not scream like an alarm made by human hands. It rose from the walls in a long metallic howl, deep enough to shiver through the heated floor, sharp enough to make the glass balcony tremble in its frames. The sound wrapped around Caleb's body, while he stood beyond the threshold, flipper still raised, smile dissolving from his face as the tower's polite voice vanished beneath the emergency wail. White light pulsed along the ceiling. My mother dropped her phone. It struck the floor with a flat little crack, the sound almost delicate beneath the siren. She stared past me at Caleb, at the open balcony door, at the sky behind him turning the color of bone. "Caleb," she said, "come inside." He blinked as if waking from a dream in which he had already become king. Wind pushed against his sweater and flattened the soft cream fabric to his chest. His hair whipped across his forehead. The city below had begun to blur. Streets, towers, cranes, roofs, all of it smeared beneath a rising veil of white that moved with unnatural hunger, climbing upward in coils, swallowing windows floor by floor. "Caleb," my father barked. Now. Caleb stepped toward the door. The smart panel flashed red. The glass began to slide shut. For half a breath, nobody moved. The mind is slow when fate changes costume. My mother's mouth opened, but no sound came out. My father's hand lifted, useless in the air. Caleb stared at the narrowing gap as if the door were teasing him. Then he lunged. His shoulder struck the glass with a heavy thud. The door sealed. The lock engaged with a sound I remembered more clearly than my own heartbeat. Click. Caleb's eyes widened. His palms slapped the glass. The phone fell from his hand and skidded across the balcony floor. Behind him the white storm climbed faster, blooming upward between buildings like a field of ash thrown into reverse. "Open it," he shouted. His voice came muffled through the insulated pane, thin and furious, stripped of grandeur. He looked ridiculous for an instant, a spoiled boy inside a jewel box he had mistaken for a throne. Then the cold hit him. I saw it arrive. Not as snowflakes at first, but as a change in his skin. The flush vanished from his cheeks. His lips parted around a breath that seemed to cut him from within. He clutched his sweater at the throat, stumbling backward as the balcony's protective warmth failed, and the exterior emergency system rerouted power away from comfort. The panoramic glass fogged around him, framing his face in cloudy rings. "Lena," my mother screamed. She shoved past me and slapped her palm against the internal scanner. The panel rejected her touch with a red pulse. "Resident identity mismatch," the tower voice announced, calm as a receptionist. "Exterior hazard protocol active. Balcony release suspended." "No," she whispered. No, open it, open the door." My father jammed his thumb against the panel. Rejected. He tried again, harder, as though authority could bruise obedience from machinery. Rejected. He struck the wall beside it and pain flashed across his face. The smart glass did not care. The tower did not care. The storm did not care. I stood just behind them, warm air breathing against my back. Caleb pounded the door. His mouth twisted around words I could not hear clearly through the sirens. His eyes found mine. At last, recognition did not bloom in him as memory. It came as instinct. Some deep animal part of him saw that I was not surprised, saw that my hands were still, saw that my face held none of the horror a loving sister should wear. His pounding slowed. My smile remained small. My mother turned on me. "Do something." Her face had lost its beauty. Panic stripped it raw. Tears spilled down her cheeks, not graceful now, not persuasive, just wet lines cutting through powder. She grabbed my arms and shook me. Her nails bit into my skin. The touch brought back the balcony from my former life so vividly that cold seemed to bloom beneath my ribs. "You worked on these systems," she sobbed. "You know people. Call someone, fix it. Please, Lena." He'll freeze. Behind her Caleb was already shaking. His first breath of real terror misted the glass. He dragged his sleeve across the pane, clearing a hole so he could see us. His lips had darkened. His fingers clawed uselessly at the seam of the door. The velvet throws the inside on his reclining chair, red and soft and warm, close enough for him to see, far enough to become a joke written by fate. I looked at my mother's hands on me. Then I looked into her eyes. "Your son is weaker than me," I said softly. She stopped shaking me. The words entered her slowly. I watched them travel through her fear, past confusion, into the locked room where guilt had been sleeping. Her pupils trembled. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. My father turned his head. "What did you say?" I stepped out of my mother's grip. "I said Caleb is weaker than me. Isn't that what matters?" The siren wailed. The glass shook. Caleb screamed something that looked like my name, his mouth stretched wide, breath smoking around his face. My mother's lips quivered. "This is not the time." I laughed. It was not loud. That made it worse. It slipped from me low and light, almost tender, and my mother flinched as if I had struck her. "Funny," I said. "It was exactly the time when you said it to me." My father's face hardened, but fear had cracked his posture. "Lena, stop this nonsense. Call emergency maintenance." "I did call someone," I said. "Days ago. I asked about the western tower balcony locks. Do you know what the technician told me?" My mother stared. My father's eyes narrowed. "He told me to stay away from exterior glass." Caleb slammed both fists against the door so hard the bones in his hands must have screamed. His face contorted, cheeks wet, eyes bulging with disbelief. He had never imagined a world where a door refused him. He had never imagined a room where his tears had no power. I stepped closer to the glass. The scanner lit my face red. "Beautiful view," I said. Caleb shook his head violently. His lip shaped curses first. "Then please." then curses again, always his pattern. When worship failed, cruelty. When cruelty failed, helplessness. He struck the glass with his elbow, then with the phone he snatched from the floor, but the reinforced pain only threw his desperation back at him. Outside, the white storm reached the tower. The first wave struck the balcony like a sheet of crushed stars. Frost exploded across the outer curve, the city vanished behind whiteness. Caleb staggered as the temperature plunged. His sweater stiffened where moisture froze. His hair whitened at the tips. He tucked his hands beneath his arms, teeth chattering so hard his jaw jerked. My mother made a sound that was not a word. She fell to her knees before the panel and began pressing it again and again, smearing tears and sweat across the screen. Please, she begged the machine. Please, 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 that's my child. The panel pulsed red. Resident identity mismatch. My father called tower security. The line never connected. He called emergency services, network congestion. He called a former colleague, then another, his voice shrinking with every unanswered ring. He had spent a lifetime believing doors opened for men who sounded certain. Now every line returned silence, and certainty drained from him like blood from a cut. Caleb's knees buckled. He caught the balcony rail. The metal burned him with cold. He jerked back, clutching his palm, face twisting. Through the frost-filmed glass, I saw the first raw patches bloom on his fingers where skin had kissed frozen steel. My mother crawled to me, actually crawled. Her knees slid over the polished floor. Her hair came loose from its careful pins. She clutched the hem of my coat with both hands and looked up at me through ruined eyes. Lena, she whispered, my baby, please, please save your brother. I know I asked too much from you before. I know we favored him sometimes, but you are kind, you are strong, you have always been strong. There it was again, strong, the word they used whenever they wanted to carve pieces from me and call the bleeding virtue. I crouched so our faces were level. My mother reached for my cheek but I caught her wrist, her pulse hammered beneath my fingers, frantic and small. Do you remember what you told me when Caleb stole my university deposit? I asked. She sobbed. I don't know, I don't remember, please. You said I could earn it again. Lena, please. When he broke my certification drive and blamed me for losing it, you said I should not make him feel worse. Her face crumpled. When he took my food rations during the first shortage, you said his body needed support. My father lowered the phone. His eyes moved between me and the balcony. He understood now that this was not madness born in a minute. This was an account book opened after death. I leaned closer to my mother, and when you pushed me outside, you said he was weaker than me. Her breath stopped. For a moment, the siren seemed far away. My mother dissed me as though my face had split open and revealed a frozen corpse beneath. She did not remember with the mind. Of course she did not, but the soul recognizes its own crime when the blade is placed exactly where it once entered another body. Something in her heard the truth. Something in her knew. I never, she whispered. You did. No, I would never. You did. Her gaze flicked to Caleb. He had slid down the glass. His arms were wrapped around himself. His mouth moved in small, frantic shapes. Mom, mom, mom. The sacred word fogged the pain before freezing at the edges. My mother tried to pull away from me. Let me out there. I released her wrist. Go! She staggered to the door and began searching for a manual handle that did not exist. Her palm swept over glass frame wall panel. There had to be some human mercy hidden in the design, some hinge, some latch, some place a mother's grief could enter. There was nothing. Luxury had made the trap seamless. My father gripped my shoulders and spun me toward him. Enough, he said. He tried to sound like my father, the final voice. The judge of the house, but his hands shook. Open this door, or I swear I will never forgive you. I looked at him for a long, quiet second. He had no idea how empty that threat was. You closed the curtains, I said. His fingers loosened. What? When I was dying, you closed the curtains. The color left his face. The storm roared against the balcony and the glass trembled in its frame. Caleb's body jerked with each violent shiver. The red emergency lights pulsed over us all, painting my father's face in the color of old sin. You couldn't watch, I continued, but you could let it happen. My father swallowed. You are sick. No, I said. I was dead. My mother screamed then, not at me, not at the tower, but at the universe itself. She beat the glass with both fists, calling Caleb's name until her voice cracked. He lifted his head. For a flicker, mother and son stared at each other through the frosting pane. All his arrogance had peeled away. No beautiful weakness now. No artful tears. No delicate cough behind a hand. His suffering had become ugly, and that was why it was finally honest. His nose ran, his lips were nearly blue, his eyes rolled with panic. He pressed his mouth to the glass, leaving a wet oval that froze almost instantly. Save me, he mouthed. My mother turned to me again, but something in my face stopped her before she spoke. I walked to Caleb's shelves. The family photo still lay face down where my mother had placed it. I picked it up and turned it over. Graduation day. The old Lena smiled beside her family, diploma in hand, eyes bright with foolish hope. Caleb leaned against my shoulder, looking frail and adored. My mother's hand rested on his chest. My father stood behind us, proud in the direction of the camera. I carried the frame to the balcony door and held it up for Caleb, his eyes focused with difficulty. You wanted this gone, I said. Look carefully. Then I lowered it and let it fall. The glass frame shattered across the heated floor. My mother sobbed as though the picture had been flesh. My father flinched. Caleb stared at the broken image, and for the first time in either life, I saw him understand that something had been taken from me too. Not a shelter. Not a room, a self. The tower announcements cut through the siren. Emergency lockdown extended. Exterior conditions lethal. Remain inside sealed zones. Do not attempt manual breach. Mother whispered lethal. The word seemed to break her spine. She folded forward, forehead against the floor, fingers curled like claws. Outside, Caleb tried to stand. He failed. His knee struck the balcony floor. The sound came through as a faint knock. He crawled toward the door, dragging himself with stiffening arms. Each movement looked carved from agony. The storm pressed white palms over the glass. Frost spread inward along the edges in intricate veins, beautiful and obscene. I had imagined this moment so many times that I thought I would feel triumph like fire. Instead, I felt stillness. Deep, black, endless stillness. Revenge was not thunder. It was a door remaining closed. My father suddenly rushed toward the pantry, seized a metal stool and swung it at the glass. The impact rang through the room. The stools bounced back, nearly tearing from his hands. He struck again. Again. His breath came in harsh grunts. The glass held. On the balcony, Caleb flinched at each blow, hope flashing and dying. Help me, my father shouted at me. I watched him tire. His swings weakened. His shoulders sagged. He dropped the stool and leaned against the door, panting. Age appeared on him all at once. Not noble age, not dignified, just a man whose authority had met a wall and broken its knuckles. You monster, he said. I tilted my head. You raised me. His face twisted. My mother rose unsteadily. Her eyes were wild now and all their old softness had curdled into hatred. You planned this, she said. You gave him the unit because you knew. Yes. The word entered the room like a stone dropped into a well. My father stared at me. My mother stared at me. Caleb, beyond the glass, stared at me. No more masks. Yes, I repeated. I knew the balcony lock could fail under storm protocol. I knew this tower was a crown with a blade inside it. I knew Caleb would want the best view. I knew you would all call me generous while handing him my life. My mother shook her head, slow and broken. He is your brother. He was my murderer. Her eyes squeezed shut. Stop saying these insane things. I stepped closer until my reflection floated over Caleb's trembling form. He smiled when you locked me out. Caleb's face changed. There, a tiny contraction. Not memory perhaps, not guilt, but fear of being seen too clearly. Even in this life, some part of him knew the shape of that smile. Cruelty has muscle memory. My mother saw the flicker. She turned back to him, and horror spread across her face like frost. Caleb, she whispered. He shook his head fiercely, denying everything and nothing. His palm slid down the glass, leaving a pale smear. His strength was leaking away. The storm had made him small, smaller than all the illnesses he had invented, smaller than the pity he had harvested, smaller than the shadow he had cast over my entire life. My father sank into the chair Caleb had arranged beside the balcony view. The velvet throw brushed his hand. He gripped it then, suddenly hurled it across the room with a strangled sound. Warmth had become obscene. Minutes stretched. Or hours. Time inside a sealed room with a dying person outside does not move forward. It circles. It forces every face toward the glass again and again. My mother prayed, then begged me, then cursed me, then prayed again. She promised money, love, apologies, public confession, anything, everything. She said she would kneel in the street and tell the world I was the daughter she loved most. She said she would never ask me for another sacrifice. She said she would make Caleb apologize. She said all the things she had never offered when I was alive enough to need them. I listened. When her voice became hoarse, I answered. Blood should not calculate. She recoiled as if the words had slapped her. My father tried bargaining next. He offered bank accounts he had hidden from the family. Property deeds, contacts, passwords. He spoke quickly, desperately, dignity stripped down to inventory. At last he had become practical. I almost admired the symmetry. Keep them, I said. You will need something to count when he stops moving. He lunged at me. He was slower than he believed. Grief made him clumsy. Rage made him obvious. I stepped aside, caught the edge of the fallen stool with my foot, and sent it sliding across his path. He stumbled, his shoulder struck the wall. Pain drove him down to one knee. I looked down at him. In my former life I had looked up from the balcony floor while he turned away. Now he looked up at me, his eyes were wet. Lena, he whispered. Not daughter, not good girl, just my name, finally naked. I knelt before him. When the curtains closed I said the dark came very slowly. I had time to wonder whether you would open them again. I had time to forgive you, then hate you, then forgive you again because dying makes the heart stupid. Then I saw Caleb smile and I stopped being your daughter. His mouth trembled. I'm sorry, he said. I searched his face for the apology I had once needed more than air. Was there maybe, too late, half crushed by fear, but there, I felt nothing. Behind us Caleb made a high thin sound. My mother crawled back to the door. Baby? He had curled on his side, his body shuddered less now his face was turned toward us. Frost crusted his lashes, his lips moved but no fog appeared. My mother pressed her cheek to the glass opposite his. The panel beside her remained red. I could have called the technician. I could have sent the override code I had purchased for my own tunnel door and gambled that someone somewhere might break protocol. I could have tried to save him so that later they could weep and say tragedy had nearly taught them gratitude. Instead I watched. Caleb's eyes found mine one last time. They were no longer bright, no longer clever, just terrified, pleading, furious that the world had not made an exception for him. He moved his fingers weakly against the balcony floor, as though reaching for the warmth he believed had always been owed. I placed my hand on the inside of the glass, not touching him, never touching him. His eyes widened. I smiled exactly as he had smiled at me. Understanding passed through him like the final cold. His mouth opened, no sound came, his hand fell still. My mother's scream tore itself apart before it finished. She collapsed against the door, sliding down until she sat on the floor with both hands pressed to her mouth, rocking over a grief so large it left no room for beauty. My father bowed his head, the room filled with the siren, the storm, and the silence of the son they had chosen. I waited until the tower confirmed what we already knew. Exterior life signs undetected. The announcement was gentle. That gentleness made my mother howl. I turned away from the balcony. There was still work to do. The storm would cripple the city by morning. Power would fail in sections. Panic would pour through the shelters when people learned luxury had defects and basements had better bones than glass palaces. My supplies were waiting below the textile market. My locks were mechanical. My heat was hidden. My life was mine. At the unit door my father spoke without lifting his head. Where are you going? Home, I said. My mother laughed then, a cracked terrible sound. Home? After this, I looked back at her. She was kneeling beneath the red emergency light, hair loose, face gray, hands smeared against the glass that separated her from her chosen child. Behind her, Caleb lay outside on the balcony he had adored, wrapped not in velvet but in the white storm's final sheet. This was never my home, I said. My father's voice broke. You cannot leave us here. I paused. The lock panel on the unit entrance glowed beside my hand. Outside the apartment, the tower corridor remained sealed under emergency shelter protocol. Residents could move within assigned safe interiors, but the family transfer registry still listed Caleb as primary occupant. My parents were temporary guests. In a crisis, guest exits required resident authorization. Caleb would not authorize anything now. My mother understood when I did. Her head lifted slowly. Lena, I opened the inner door just enough for myself. My own maintenance credential flashed green. A narrow gap breathed corridor air against my face. My father staggered up. Wait. My mother crawled forward. Lena, please. Please do not leave us locked in here. The words were so perfect that the universe seemed to hold them up for me like a gift. I looked at the balcony, then at them. You are inside, I said. You should be grateful. I stepped through the door. My mother screamed my name and threw herself toward me, but the unit recognized my exit and sealed behind me before her fingers reached the gap. Click. The corridor swallowed the sound of their pounding almost immediately. I walked away through pulsing red lights, past sealed doors behind which other chosen families cried, prayed, lied and counted supplies. The tower shook around us. Outside, the white storm erased the world floor by floor, window by window, name by name. At the service stairwell, I stopped once, not because I regretted anything, because somewhere deep in my bones the girl who had died on the balcony was finally warm. I descended into the maintenance dark with my bag over my shoulder and the override map folded against my heart. The storm roared above, furious that I had escaped its teeth. Let it roar. Let the city learn what polished promises were worth. Let my mother press her palms forever against glass that would not open. Let my father sit beneath the weight of curtains he could no longer close. Let Caleb's empty throne face the view he had stolen. By dawn, I would reach my basement. By winter, I would rule my own small kingdom of heat, water, and silence. And if ghosts existed, if the dead version of me still crouched somewhere beyond time with frost on her lashes and betrayal in her throat, I hoped she could see me now. I did not forgive them. I survived them,